I have 4 autoimmune disorders. The main one is Beset syndrome, which I found out is very rare. So a lot of doctors didn't even know what to do. So every time I went to a doctor, they would have to go into their medical books to figure it out. And then I had 3 other ones that went along, and I had major flare-ups that were limiting my life. My joints would get huge. I literally couldn't walk, and I have 2 children, so not walking with 2 kids is a little complicated. I get cold sores throughout my mouth, and I'm exhausted. Get up, get the kids to school, and then go to bed. I met a doctor in New York City who's the renowned, supposedly he's the known doctor for it, and he was able to manage it with medications, and he allowed me to contact him. But as life stresses happened, it just got worse. Like, I remember sitting on my stairs just crying my eyes out, going, oh my God, like, what do I do? One of the times I was very frustrated, I went to a friend's house in my neighborhood, and she was asking me how I was doing, and I was sharing my frustrations about some of my flare-ups and my exhaustions and how it was affecting my family. And she's like, well, I know this gentleman that I work with who's an acupuncturist, and I never thought to get needled. Like, I was like, nobody puts needles on me. And she's like, it's worth going to talk to because he works with autoimmune disorders. And I talked to my husband, and he's kind of more into the that type of medicine anyway, the Eastern type of medicine and functional medicine. I was like, okay, because I've done so much of Western medicine at this point, medicines, prednisone, the whole thing, and it wasn't working. So he's like, let's give it a shot. And then I went in and saw Dan. So the most impressive thing for me was, after seeing so many doctors who every time I went in would have to run to their medical book to see what Beset syndrome was, I went into Dan, and he's like, oh yeah, so I've been studying it, here's what I know. I'm like, wait, you know you know this? Like, I don't have to go through step A with you? And he's like, yeah. He's like, here's what the deal is, and he's like, here's what autoimmune disorders are. And then I realized that some of my other conditions were autoimmune disorders also. So I was being treated holistically in that regard, that everything was kind of being taken care of. When I first started seeing him, I was seeing him multiple days a week for acupuncture because I was in major flare-up mode. He had me on supplements, and just kind of, at that point, he was actually more reactive than proactive because I was coming to him very inflamed, which was fine. But we were trying to get to the point where we can be more proactive and trying to prevent. And so then he started having me change some dietary stuff, and he took some sensitivity tests to see what foods I was sensitive to, and then I went on a 6-week detox. The detox was tough. I mean, it was 6 weeks, and I ate very few foods, but 6 weeks out of your life is pretty small when you're dealing with a flare-up. I have felt good since. So that was almost 2 years ago. That year that I met him, I was on prednisone probably 5-7 times. Like, every other month I had to go on prednisone, which I don't do well on. Most people don't. And then, so I've only been on prednisone since I did the detox, which was, let's say I finished October of 2016, twice. And one of them was actually more preventative because I was going on a trip, and I just said, let's just make sure. My energy levels are much better. And I am like able to walk around. I'm able to do life functions. It's not stopping me. That's huge. I have a life. Like, it's not, before, there was a period when I met him that my life was this condition. I have freedom. Yeah. So he's been great. And for me, one of the biggest things with him was, when I had a concern, he responds immediately. And there's more than just the medicine there. Like, he's very compassionate about his patients. My husband, he couldn't come to the meetings, but if he ever had a question, he'd call Dan, and Dan would spend whatever time it was to explain what I was going through. Sorry, it's been a process. What I've been going through, and so he's just very available, very accessible. Amazing.